Okay, I see by the clock on the wall that it is 3 o'clock. Time to call to order the Board of Directors regular meeting for Monday, December 18th, 2023. Could I have a roll call, please?
Director Meyerhoffen.
Here.
Director Duff.
Here.
Director Griffith.
Present.
Vice President Sewell.
Here.
President Martin.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Okay. We can skip item 3 since all the board members are present and move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Ivan, would you lead us in the pledge?
United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ivan. Counselor, would you go over rules of procedure, please?
Yes, according to the rules of procedure adopted by the Board of Directors, all notice meetings are conducted using Rosenberg's Rules of Order as a procedural guideline. Directors should refrain from responding directly to public comments at meetings of the board. The president of the board presides at all meetings and decides all points of order and procedure during meetings. The president is responsible for the maintenance of order and decorum at all board meetings. No person should be allowed to speak who has not first been recognized by the president. No member of the board should speak more than once upon any one subject until every other member of the board wishing to speak on the subject shall have been given an opportunity to speak. No board member shall interfere with the orderly progress of a board meeting, and the board president regulates the amount of time to be dedicated to a particular agenda item.
Thank you, Counselor. Item 6, public input. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the board on matters within the board's jurisdiction. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less. State law prohibits the board from discussing or taking action on any item that is not listed on the agenda. Dory, do we have any members of the public wishing to address the board?
President Martin, there is no public comment.
Do we have any members of the public at the meeting here today that would like to address the board? Welcome, Counselor. Okay, moving on to item 7, Human Resources Report. Brian?
Thank you, President Martin, members of the board. We are currently in the process of reworking our employee service awards. Starting this month, during the HR report, we only introduce highlighted employees who are celebrating milestone anniversaries, such as 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, and so on. We'll continue to include yearly anniversaries. For example, there's one this month, Amanda Lucas, in the board packets. And as we feel it's necessary to recognize all of our employees, we just only do so on their milestone dates moving forward. We'll continue to highlight all of the employees and any retirements and things of that nature, promotions, but again, just sticking with the milestones. So look forward to sharing with you next month. We have no one that's at a milestone, or don't have any new hires, nor do we have any retirements this month.
We do have Amanda listed 7 years.
Yes, but that's not necessarily a milestone. So,
okay.
But we did want to mention her and her anniversary. So,
Okay. All right. Moving on to item 8, election of Mission Springs Water District Board officers for 2024. It's recommended to nominate and elect a president and vice president for the 2024 year. Director Griffith, I understand you have a nomination you'd like to make.
Yeah, I would like to nominate Vice President Sewell for president for 2024. I want to say, let me say this. I don't believe in doing things because they've always been done that way. In conversations, I know that Vice President Sewell has not always felt that he's been able to voice his perspective on things. And so I want him to be able to do that this year. And so that is why I am making this nomination.
Okay.
I'll second it.
There is no second required if the person accepts the nomination. Do you accept the nomination? Okay, all right. All right. With that, we'll entertain a vote. All those in favor of.
Do you want to open it up for comment and public comment as well?
There was no members of the public present today, but I can certainly do it again if. Are there any members of the public wishing to address the board on this item?
President Martin, there is not.
Okay. With that, I'll entertain a vote. Please have a roll call vote, please.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Griffith,
Aye.
President Martin,
Yes.
Director Mayor Hoffman,
Yes.
and Director Sewell.
Yes.
Great, congratulations. You will take over the seat at the first meeting in January. Is that correct, Brian?
Yes.
In January. So very, very cool. Moving on to the vice president position on there. Would like to entertain a nomination for vice president. Anybody having? In that case, I will make a nomination for vice president. I nominate Robert Griffith for vice president. Do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do.
Okay, all right. Can we have a roll call vote, please? Oh, the
Director-
question, wait. Do we have any members of the public wishing to address on this matter?
President Martin, we do not.
Okay, all right.
And it would be, there's no members of the public and any members of the board that wish to comment, have an opportunity to do so too.
Okay, does anybody want to comment on these, either the president nomination or the president election or the vice president nomination?
I'll make a comment. I agree with your nomination. I think in the time that Robert's been here, he's really put in a lot of work and effort. And I'd love to have him as my vice president.
Okay, terrific. Congratulations. We have a vote for the vice president.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Griffith,
Aye.
President Martin,
Yes.
Director Mayer Hoffman,
Yes.
Vice President Sewell.
Yes.
Okay, congratulations, both of you. Moving on to item 9, ordinance 2023-01, an ordinance of the Board of Directors of the Mission Springs Water District adopted pursuant to the provisions of the Water Code 20201 et sequitur, providing for compensation of directors of the district. Is recommended to waive the second reading and adopt ordinance 2023-01 by title only, updating compensation for the board of directors pursuant to Water Code section 20202 et sequitur. Okay. Is there any further any discussion on this item? Brian, do you have any?
No, we do not.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
And Counselor Attorney can tell me if this is, we're able to do this is without having to go through the whole public hearing process, is to make an amendment to this so that this is reviewed annually, effective 2025, when the employee increases are also reviewed.
So if we amended the ordinance, then we would come back for another reading.
Okay.
After making that amendment, but I think you can, if the board's inclined to do so, it can pass the ordinance today with the direction to staff to bring this back once a year, and I don't think that's required to be in the ordinance.
Okay, and thank you. So I move as is and direct staff to bring this back in 2025, please.
We have a second.
Second.
We have a roll call vote, please.
My apologies. Director Mayer Hoffman,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Yes.
Director Griffith,
Aye.
Vice President Sewell,
Yes.
President Martin.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay. And I believe we also have to now take a vote on the actual,
President Martin,
yes.
I'm not sure, did you call for public comment on that item? I know we don't have any public present, but I think it would be good to go through that formality,
Okay.
just to confirm.
Do we have any members of the public wishing to address this item?
President Martin, there is not.
Yes, go ahead, Amber.
Sorry about that. Thank you. I did just want to make a comment that I wasn't able to make last month when this issue came up. And I just think it's a good reminder as public servants that we remember that part of the democracy is making this process something that everyone can participate in. The single mom, the retired individual, the worker that has two jobs. And so by bringing this back and raising this to something that is a more palatable reimbursement for your service is very important to increase the open democracy in our community. And I just wanted to applaud the board for doing that and for seeing this today.
Okay,
Thank you.
any other further comments from the board?
President Martin, did we have a second on that motion?
Yes, we did. Ivan
Sure.
had a second.
Thank you.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote?
Question?
President Martin, there appears we do have a question from a member of the public.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Pamela.
This is Pamela Edmondson. I'm a little curious. I'm hearing you say that this is for 2025. Will you be bringing it back in December of 2024 for 2025?
Would you like me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I think it might be a little confusing. This item is actually for now, which would actually go into effect in March of 2024. And the direction to staff was to bring this back in 2025, since this will be effective in 2024. We don't want to bring this back again in 2024. We want to make this part of an annual thing when each year we look at the CPI, we look at increases for regular employees. At that point, we should continue to look at that in terms of board compensation so that we're not stuck in a position which we have been, which is to not look at it for 20 some years and then have to make some kind of drastic increase just to keep up. So this will allow us on an annual basis to look at the compensation, see if it's fair, see if it needs to be increased, which we can do by law up to 5%, and go from there. So it won't be really, the only thing that'll happen in 2024 is that in March, this will go into effect, and then we will review this around that time in 2025. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
It lets us know when, next year, not next year, but in 2025, there will be elections then as well, and compensations.
And just as a reminder, there was a public hearing previously on this ordinance. And so I assume, President Martin, that at this point, all public comments are closed, correct?
That's correct. Okay. We had did we take a vote on that?
I believe we did.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. Then moving on to item 10, annual report of capacity fees and related capital expenditures. It's recommended that the board of directors accept the annual report of capacity fees and related expenditures as submitted. Ryan?
Yes, thank you, President Martin. In your packet, there is a staff report as well as a report. This is a requirement through the California Government Code. It is a report that we send to the local builders association to get their concurrence to this. We have reached out to Gretchen at Desert Builders Association. We have gone through back and forth with a couple of issues, but they have been resolved. So everything is it's very positive from the Builders Association, who's typically the ones that would have any comment on establishing these fees. Also, let me add, this is a report of the previous fees. We will be evaluating them as part of the long range financial plan moving forward. So we'll keep coming back to this on a yearly basis. That concludes our report.
Okay. Do we have any members of the public wishing to address the board on this matter? Okay,
President
any-
Martin, we do not.
Any questions or comments from the board? Amber, go ahead.
So in reviewing the attachments or the reports that were sent, I'm assuming the connection fee summary for the water and sewer. And I was looking at the ending balances, and it comes to about $35 million of uncollected or uncollectible costs And I just want to make sure that, one, the public hears that figure, $35 million, that because our fees haven't been regularly increased because of concern for our community and the effects that those increases in costs have, $35 million in the hole for procedures for our developers, I find unacceptable. And I really hope that moving forward, the review of these costs are going to be fully addressed as we continue. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Any other comments? Laura? No. Ivan? Ted? Okay. Okay, then I'll entertain a motion for, to accept the annual report of capacity fees and related expenditures as submitted.
So moved.
We have a second.
I'll second.
You have a motion and a second. Do a roll call vote, please.
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Aye.
Director Griffith,
Aye.
Vice President Sewell,
Yes.
President Martin.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay. Moving on to item 11. Mission Springs Water District Regional Water Reclamation Facility update.
Thank you, President Martin. We did provide an update on our Thursday study session. However, there was a question about how much was the second disbursement request for. It was $9.274 million. I can't guarantee when we'll get that actual check, but we have not received any additional comments. We did respond to them last week as far as the additional information they were looking for. Terry talked about something being a little bit fuzzy and we had to clarify and send another copy. But other than that, we have not heard anything. It is Monday, but if we do, we'll turn that around as quickly as we can, because obviously we don't want to have almost over $9 million sitting out there. So that concludes our report.
Yes. Robert, go ahead.
Will somebody be watching out for that over the Christmas holidays since many people are off?
I don't know that the state will be that quick, but if they are, yes, we will have staff here.
Okay, thank you.
And that's a good point. It's probably the best time to say it. While our offices will be closed next week, we will have staff in the building. We will have our staff down at the corporate yard, and we will have all standby being covered.
However, it is coming to us and not TKE.
Correct. Correct. It does come directly to us.
Okay.
May I also?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you for getting that information for me. And if you could also just remind me at some future point what the amount we had to remove on the first invoices that we're waiting to resubmit. I'm just trying to keep a running tally going on in my mind. And so that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, were there any members of the public wishing to address this item? Okay. This is just a discussion item, does not require a vote. Moving on to item 12, Critical Services Center Administrative Building Update.
Thank you, President Martin. Alvin Flores is available to give a presentation. He's got a PowerPoint that will answer some of the questions that were asked at our last meeting regarding this topic. Alvin, floor is yours. Are you, is it on mute? We can't hear you, Alvin.
Apologize. Thought I clicked the unmute button. Can you hear me now, Brian?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. No problem. So, good afternoon, President Martin, members of the board, district staff. So we were working to pick up from the last presentation that we did. So if we can move to the next slide. So as we discussed last time, there's a long history of various studies that were done with the district staff to ascertain the best route in terms of the most appropriate site, and various studies done to hopefully help understand to get to the best resolution for that site. So I know William brought a lot of these items last time, and I think as we get further into the next slide as well. These were some of the follow-up items brought up at the last presentation. So we'll kind of address these as we go. So the first one was looking at the Second Street location and the cost for temporary office space, looking at the sale value of that property along with the demolition costs. We'll clarify that, and then kind of next steps in terms of deciding on different ways to approach the new admin building as well. So the next slide. Going in a little bit more detail in terms of the various costs for the Second Street project. I know William was working on most of these, Brian, so I'm not sure if
William, are you available to?
he's
step in?
available to.
Yeah, I can go over this one here.
Perfect.
So last time everyone saw this slide here, we were asked to provide the update on temporary space as well if the construction were to take place at Second Street. So we just updated that file to show, we did some research and just to show what some average temporary space figures might look like. For example, if we were to lease for a year in an available space, that cost of that space might cost $150,000 for the lease per year for 1 year, up to 2.5 years. And then there's renovation costs as well. With that, we're figuring a space of approximately 10,000 square feet that would be needed for office staff and administration staff, with an average lease price of $15 per square foot and renovation costs of $200 per square foot. In addition to that, with the Second Street property, we do have the cell phone tower as well. So if the Second Street property, that would also be revenue to consider as well. At the time of the 2020 appraisal that was done, the estimated value of that remaining lease was $280,549. So we calculate that at approximately $250,000 now remaining on that, with 17 years left approximately on that. For temporary properties, this was all as of December 8th, searching on loopnet.com for commercial properties for lease. There were 4 potential properties that really meet our space requirements of that we would need. One of the first one is here on Palm Drive, right at the former World Gym location. You can see they have 2 spaces available, totaling 10,155 square feet. And the breakdown of those 2 spaces. So one of the possible issues with that location is they have limited parking availability compared to our current location. The second option that has the square footage is the Mission Lakes Marketplace. However, according to their listing, they have a list of desired tenants, it seems, that they would like to see in there: restaurant, food court, grocery, dry cleaners, postal services, pharmacies, or other business services. And there is no Sunline bus connection to that location. Options 3 and 4 are both light industrial cannabis zoned, and also no bus route connection as well. On that screenshot of the map there, you will see some other ones, other arrows, red arrows. However, those locations are much smaller than we could possibly use, 1,200 square feet and such. This is a breakdown of those properties, similar to what you all saw last month, with some of the land acquisition numbers that we were looking at. So these were those lease opportunities here in Desert Hot Springs. Moving on to the January 2020 appraisal. So in January of 2020, the district had an appraisal done to get the estimated value of the Second Street property. So with that appraisal, you can see the breakdown of all of the parcels of the Second Street complex. Those all combine to about a total of 1.7 million as of 2020. Reviewing the vacant properties that they used in the appraisal for the comparable sales at the time, I went through and reviewed those and what their estimated values are today, and they had an average increase of 18%. So if our vacant land properties have followed that same trend, then our land values on the screen that listed as vacant could potentially be valued at approximately 116,000, up from 99,000. This screen here shows the commercial property or commercial real estate price index that's published by the St. Louis Federal Reserve. So the search range was set from Q1 of 2020 to match our appraisal to Q2 of 2023, the most recent value that they have on the price index tool here. And with that, the index is increased from 100 to 119, representing a possible 19% increase of the collective Second Street buildings at the Second Street complex here. Of course, all of these figures we would want to have confirmed by a licensed commercial real estate appraiser. So these are just potential figures. Okay, and then I'm gonna pass it.
Let me,
Oh.
yeah, before you pass it on, I just wanted to clarify, we were looking at this particular location of what the appraisals would be if we were to build a building here and have to move the staff out of this location. Just let me remind the board that the ops building would not be able to be built at this location. It would only be the building itself. So it's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison when we're talking about the next slide, because that is everything. But I just want to make that clarification that the ops building would not be at this location. We just don't have the room on this site. Go ahead, Will.
Thank you, Brian. All right, so now I will pass it back over to Alvin for the Park Lane Corporate Yard updated cost estimates. And Alvin, take it away.
Got it. Thanks, William. So last we spoke, one of the items to clarify from the last meeting was an estimation of the demolition costs for the existing park site. So on the far right side in that column, we have that in there now. So it's about 674,000. And then we've also updated the top line number. So we're at about 31.2 million at this site, just for include with all in, just like Brian was saying. So this site includes all the various program elements that we've discussed to date. And then if we go to the next slide, that will help identify the areas of demolition that we have covered in that additional cost. So I believe Director Meyerhoffen, you had brought this point of clarification at the last meeting. So hopefully this kind of explains that approach.
Thank you.
And then in the next slide, what we were also tasked to look at is potential ways to reduce the square footage of the building. So this is just one option that we can find. So we were looking at about 2,000 square feet within the building that we could potentially reduce, making allowances for the future that we could expand back into these spaces. But what this would potentially help us do based on the cost that we had looked at earlier, that 2,000 square foot removal would equate to somewhere between $1 to $1.4 million of potential savings. What I did want to illustrate here is what that would, how that would impact the building. So I've identified two spaces here. The top right will be the flex room, and in the bottom left will be a portion of the operations, offices and workspaces. And what we're looking at is by removing that square footage, you're going to lose that function of the large flex space, which allowed for either a wellness room or expansion from the lounge for larger events or maybe all staff meetings. And then the reduction in the offices. At this point, you would lose 5 offices and the potential for 6 workstations. And there'll be a little bit of rework that would end up having to be done on the floor plan in order to make this work out efficiently. but this is an option. And again, this would net savings between $1 to $1.4 million if decided to move forward. And then that bottom right image is just to show how this would impact the aesthetic, the architecture. So one of the reasons to choose that those offices in the operations area is it's a portion of the building that we could easily remove that wouldn't make a huge impact to the overall design of the building. So, and we can move on to the next slide. Next step. So William or Brian, I'm not sure if you wanted to pick this up or.
I can go ahead and start off. And so the next steps with this project, we feel are, choosing our final site selection for the building, along with the layout selection. The design, the original design, reduced design, we can see more options for different designs as well. And then we would also have to get the contract amendment completed with Renault Clark as well for the corporate yard location in order to continue moving forward with that. And Brian, if you have anything to add on this one?
No, I think at this point, it's really, we just need board direction on these items so we can move the project forward if the board so chooses. But at this point, I think we've addressed, unless there's other questions that the board has at this time. I think we addressed all the questions from last time. If there are any additional, please let us know and we'll bring this back to you. But at this point, this is where we are right now, and we just need board direction to move the project forward.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Yes,
Questions now, you brought more information here. So that 200,000, you're looking at lease another place to move the people from the corporate yard? I don't understand that lease part of it. Why were we looking to lease something else?
If we were to put the building here, we'd have to move the administrative staff out of this location. If we do decide the corporate yard and have to relocate those folks, they would more than likely simply just go down to the right facility. We have adequate showers, locker rooms, as well as space once everything is filled back up and the gravel is laid. It may be a little bit tight for a year and a half, but it is an opportunity to move folks there, and we have the sufficient space.
Thank you. My next question is, a resident, they showed the lots that we own here at 16,000 a lot. The residential lots around town now are running 30 to 45,000. So I don't know how we come up with 16,000 here for a lot. I believe it's all zone commercial, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so those are commercial lots going for 16,000, but a residential lot's going for 30 or 40. Seems like we ought to hang on a little longer for that. The building that's on the corner over here is for sale for 1.7 million right now. So I'm not really sure if these estimates are really accurate or what, but in any case, we're not ready to sell out right now anyhow, and move that money over there. So maybe when we are, that'll all go up where it should be, or where I think it should be.
Well, and again, this appraisal was done several years ago, and I think that's why Will tried to show the comparison of when the appraisal was taken to where it is now based on just national numbers. But you're absolutely right. The market's going to change. And by the time, if we do move forward, we're looking at another year and a half, maybe 2 years. So yes, these numbers are just today numbered based on what we know and what we've been told by other consultants. So
I was kind of hoping that we'd have a 2024 or 2023 update, but anyways, gives us a starting point.
Yep.
Now, the Horton treatment plant, we're already kind of tight on space there. And we're trying to move a building around, cut the building down. And I really think we need to look for future growth. What we might need in the future over there. We discussed the state regulations, everybody going to electric, if we like it or not, everything's going to electric. So last meeting, we were told we're gonna have to cut down the garden area a little bit. And then now, knowing that within the next 10 to 20 years, we all go to electric, where are we gonna be charging all these vehicles if we're already running out of space? So that's a concern to me. The other concerns is that, I hate to say it, but I'm going to, the district has seemed to made some decisions as far as building, what was going on here that seem that just aren't correct as far as I'm concerned. We already know about what happened over there at the Two Bunch property. That was a scene that shouldn't have happened. Placing a tower next to the building here when we knew we might be able to grow there, the district might grow later. 60-year lease on the park next door to the Horton treatment plant prevented the district from building a treatment plant next door, so we would have all that future growth. Now we're sending our sewer from the house, that $50 bill now goes to the Horton treatment plant, to a pumping station, down to another treatment plant, and maybe another pumping station up high somewhere. So I think we really need to take
We're-
some more time.
Just to be clear, we're on the administrative building,
Yes.
so.
What I'm saying is that we need to really look at this a little bit more because we made some mistakes in the past. And I think it's a mistake not having room to grow in the future by putting this at the Horton treatment plant. The only two things I've heard so far from staff or the board is that we own the property and it's down the street from the library. And that's really not a reason to build a $20 or $30 million building. So I'm through. Thank you.
Unless you're trying to save the 20 or $30 million. Anyway, go ahead, Ivan.
Yes, just to start up front, I don't know if the corporate yard is maybe the perfect choice for the building, but in my opinion, I think it's the right choice. And I do think this building is needed. It's been needed, I think, since I've been on the board. I don't think it's a question of if we need the space, or we definitely need the space, and I think it's something that we can grow into. I did have a couple questions for Alvin. When you mentioned the cost savings of cutting out the flex space and those additional offices, you did mention reworking the design.
Correct.
What would the cost to rework the design be? Or is that factored in that saving?
We'd have to look into it a little bit more, but at this point, we would like to assume that is fairly well factored into that. So, and the rework really is just, there's certain elements. I identified offices and I identified workstations that we just removed because we'll consider those areas that could be grown into. But for instance, one of the spaces that will be displaced in is the lab. So based on our discussions with staff, that is a needed facility piece. So we'll end up having to move that into some of the other space. So
Okay.
it'll adjust, say, for instance, one of the other offices and switch that into a lab. And then same thing with the entry. We have a slightly larger entry, so you're not just entering into kind of a tight hallway. It's an area that you can transition into. So it should not affect the cost drastically. So I think that range, that band that I mentioned earlier, it should cover that. So
Okay, and just ballpark to remove that 1 to 1.4, it's maybe about a 4% savings to the entire project.
yeah,
So
we were.
I don't think it's
Mhm.
too significant of a savings to have to
Mhm.
rework everything. I believe we're gonna need the space eventually, and should we have to add that space in the future, it's most likely, I mean, definitely gonna cost more than to do the project up front. Is there a way to go out to bid with that as an option, or is that just really overcomplicated as far as go out to bid existing, but the removal could be an option, or?
We could work to, we would have to change the design in order to account for it, but we could try, yeah,
Okay,
to
'cause
provide
I'm
an
just
alternate.
thinking,
Mhm.
These are all just estimates really until we get that
Correct.
bid.
Mhm.
It might not be 1 to 1.4, so,
Correct. Mhm.
it's definitely, I believe it just seems to me, if we can afford 97% of the cost, I think we could afford the 100%. That small savings maybe to me isn't worth having to rework everything. And then I did have a question. You added the demolition of the yard, and when you showed that slide, it didn't include the Horton plant.
Yes, sir.
Did we also factor in the cost for filling those couple ponds and compacting those?
So in our previous design, we did have to provide some fill to the site in order to raise it to level. So at this point, again, we have to dive into it a little bit more in detail, but there was a significant amount of fill that was needed at the Two Bunch Palm site as well, because most of that site sloped into the basin. So again, we'd have to dive into it a little bit more, but there was already significant grading at that site. And right now we're estimating it to be comparable at this site. So as of now, we do have that somewhat covered.
Okay. And then I guess just a general comment to staff. I know sometimes a lot of these discussion items, materials are kind of put together over last minute. But if we could get this either in an email or a printout, or even future discussion items when there's things like this, if we could get a printout before the meeting, I feel like it would, it's hard to see a slide for 60 seconds, especially some of the ones with a lot of details. And if we could have it here, just make things easier to go back and forth.
We can do that.
I guess my opinions, I'd like to move forward with the courtyard and go out to bid.
Robert?
I kind of thought we had leaned in the direction of the courtyard anyway, and I know we wanted the comparisons, and I understand Director Meyerhoffen's concerns. When it comes to the building itself, yeah, 4.5% is not a big discount, but then again, in terms of what they're taking out, how I would want to ask how critical it is that space that we're taking out. Are we still going to be able to function and have space for growth over the next 30, 40 years? Yeah, that's a question.
Good luck.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you, Director Griffin. The lab, as Alvin talked about, would be something we'd have to relocate the other staff members. We do have plenty of open areas. Matter of fact, in the middle of that L, you have a workstation there. Those would become some of the offices, so we would lose workstation spots. But for the most part, that lab is the one thing that we'd probably be most focused on replacing. Would we have enough room for 30, 40 years? My crystal ball is not that clear, but based on the space planning they laid out, this area was identified as being needed 90 employees. So from that perspective, based on the space planning and the projection that we did at the beginning, 90 employees is still the same answer. This is going to reduce, it looks like, up to 11 employees, or space for 11 employees. So that would be my answer. From that perspective. We could move around the lab, yes, but losing 11 employees out of 90 seemed to be a significant number. However, keep in mind that those 90 employees, some of them would be in the field. When we were in that space planning, we did not have the the Wright facility under construction. Now it is. And we have a home for at least 4 of 5 of those employees. So in reality, we only may be 5 short. So when you're talking about 5 short and a building of this size, you're still over 25,000 square feet. I think we would be able to work with it. The interesting thing about that L, where it would be located on the last layout, or I think the preferred layout that we had, that would be up against the corner of the park area. So going back and adding that area would be close to that property line. That would be my only concern of coming back and adding that, but it can be done. It's going to be constructed if we did keep it in there as is. So it's not something that's unfeasible, but going back to Director Sewell's, or excuse me, President Sewell's, Vice President Sewell, however we want to talk about that question about, coming back in, it will be a dollar for dollar. We're always going to continue to grow. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. It is an opportunity. It's not a dollar for dollar. I mean, just thinking about where we've gone in the last 2 years from 28 million up to 33 million, it's only going to get more expensive. So I don't have a concrete answer, but I do believe that the space planning is still going to be the same. We're going to continue to grow. This is an opportunity, but I also understand the price constraints we're under. And if we lost it, we would take that and move on.
Okay, I'm not done. Okay, so I think, I mean, if you're looking for direction from my perspective, I would like to pursue that location. Uh, and just for Director Meyerhoffen's benefit, some of the other benefits are, I know the library, but some people can drop their kids off at the library and pay their bill. A lot of people do like to pay cash, but also it is on a bus line, which I think is very, very important for those people that don't have transportation. I'm not sure how much a redesign would cost. And so you have to factor into if you're saving 1.4 million, but I don't know what an architect's cost. I know they get paid a lot more than we do. So, you know, if that's going to cost you $100,000 for a redesign, then you're reducing your savings. So, I would like to kind of ponder, but definitely, I think we just need to make some directions and move because things are not getting any cheaper. But I would like to see some financing ideas of if we are going to move forward, how are we going to pay for this? Because I don't think moving forward without that information is feasible, at least from my perspective, nor is it prudent. So that's what I have to say.
Amber?
Thank you. First, just to give Director Meyerhoffen my personal concerns. You didn't feel like you knew all of them, so I want to make sure you understand. I too feel this needs to be on a bus route, conveniently located for public transit. And that goes with any of the locations. It needs to be near a bus route.
I agree.
The other concern that I've had is, and I've had members of the public say, why aren't you guys looking at an empty warehouse that was, a cannabis business that went out or what have you? Because we can't afford to pay cannabis square footage, period. We can't afford to pay the property taxes for those cannabis facilities, and we can't afford to pay the per square foot cost of those cannabis zone facilities. Those owners want 3-4 times the regular commercial rate, and they're not on bus routes. So that's why I have not been a party of those recommendations. Director Sewell asked a couple of the questions that I had, and so those have been already presented as a concern. If you could go to the very last screen for me, though, that you guys had up. And Director Griffith mentioned a couple of these issues. For me, my personal perspective of what's been presented to us, the Horton facility seems to be the best location, in my opinion, given what's been presented to us so far. But I would like to know what the contract amendment with our architects would cost, depending on which way we go. We know that we already are going to have a cost for them to put this on the new elevations at the corporate yard. But I'd like to know, what would the cost be if it's there? What would the cost be if that included the removal of the square footage, and what it would be if it was the whole project? What if is there a way to do this in series? Are we able to do this in like phases? Again, trying to think of the way we can finance this, the way we can make this happen and be something we can grow into. The finances become a big part of it. So anything we can do to find out the actual cost for the project redesign and those options, as well as, is there any out of the box creative thinking in how can we do this in phases? And that's it for me. Thank you.
So President Martin, if I may. No, I'm not trying to save 20 or $30 million here. I understand that we do need another building. I also understand that we have 7 people leaving the corporate yard to come up here in the morning. And that you start adding up those costs to the vehicles that they're driving, 7 vehicles coming up here. I counted them. You start adding up those costs and it adds up. So at the end of the year, and we have people walking over to use restrooms, and you start adding up their hourly wages. And I did sit down and do some math on that. It's costly, and it not only runs from there, it runs into, now you have to hire extra people because you lost a whole person during the year. So yes, we do need that. Now, this bus route thing. You're right, it does need to go on a bus route. But when you look at where those bus stops are located, and I'm not sure if you have looked at that yet, but the majority of the people are gonna be coming from the north down south on the west side of the street. There's not a crosswalk there. And we've had enough fatalities of people trying to cut across there. So that's one bad. There is a stop that is out in front of the hotel that comes from the south side on the east side. So that's a good bus stop there. So we have to look at that. And as far as dropping your kids off at the library, I don't know. Do they have a babysitting service over there? So I personally, I wouldn't want to walk down past the park. Like all cities have parks with homeless in there. And there's going to be another lower income development there too. So no, I'm not walking down the street with my cash to go pay my bill. And so, yes, we do need a new building. But no, I'm not for it here. And yes, we do need to figure out where the financing, before we do anything else, approve any location or anything. We need to look at our strategic plan and our general plan coming up and find out where this really fits. And the financing is both, it's very important. Where are we with our financing? Thank you.
Okay, Ivan, anything further? Anything further? Anything further?
Yeah.
Any questions from the public on this issue or comments? Hello?
President Martin, there is not.
Okay, all right. With that, I still get the sense that the general consensus is a corporate yard if you're looking for direction on this issue. Would that be your assessment? And okay, and mine as well. So things may develop at some point down the road that may cause us to change. I don't know. But as it stands right now, I think the corporate yard is the best direction we could go.
So what you're saying, we're gonna move forward with this and spend some more money and
Giving them direction.
giving them direction, which means they're gonna spend more money? Or giving them direction, what does that mean, actually? Financially, what does giving them direction mean financially?
Can I
Or
interject?
hiring more people or?
Could I interject to the direction being given to the staff? I think that the majority of our board does agree that again, with what's been currently presented to us, that the corporate yard appears to be the best location. But before I would be willing to approve new contracts, I want to know those costs first. Before I can say, yes, the corporate yard is the best place, I need to know what the cost of the architect is going to be and more concrete on what the fill costs are, things.
We are not asking to go to construction, or we're not asking to go to bid. What we're really looking for to get to is to have an amendment to the existing architectural contract. I believe, Alvin can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the original contract, which took us all the way through design, was $1.4 million. So what we're talking about here, if we do select the corporate yard and flipping the building, as we've talked about, to make sure that that the boardroom has the most visibility coming down Park Lane, we would be looking for a redesign of the building, to flip the building, keeping it as is, and then redoing the site. That's something that they can put a price on. And then going back to what Director Sewell talked about, is that if we wanted to then bid the project as an additive deduct and remove that L section and possibly another room, we could then go to the contractor that bid on the project or wins the bid, and then we could do it at that time.
I guess what I'm specifically needing to know before my direction is to go forward at the corporate yard is, what is the architect's cost going to be? Is it
And that's
15,000? Is it 150,000? Is it another 500,000?
So-
I need to know what they're charging us. to
so
do
those 4 steps that you saw allows us to ask for that price, because we had to pick location, we had to pick layout of the building, and then do we want to include the entire building itself? So with the question that Director Sewell, and I believe you probably had the same question about, could we remove these at a different time after we get a bid price? Because in reality, until we get a bid price, we don't know the true benefit of removing that area. The only way to get there is to get the project out, get it redesigned, and move forward.
But have the architects given you an idea of what that?
Their cost is?
Yeah.
No, because they didn't know what they were redesigning yet. Now that we know what we're redesigning, we can bring back to you next month what that amendment to that $1.4 million contract would be.
That's what
And,
we needed.
and that's exactly,
Thank you.
that was the fourth bullet
That's
point.
what I needed.
So
Thank
with the direction that we've received today, if I'm understanding this correctly, corporate yard, the layout that we have, go ahead and get a cost from Renewal Clark to do an amendment to their existing contract. And then
So we're not,
Preliminary
finances.
And-
that we will not be prepared for because that's so much part of the long range financial plan of exact. So if we can start, so knowing that and Alvin, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but knowing that it was 1.4 to get us to where we are today, to redesign it, it's not going to be another 1.4. Let's say it's $500,000. Again, not trying to put anybody, but if it's $500,000, we can make that decision next month.
Let's say it's 50,000.
Let's say it's 50,000.
I like what I said, 10.
Okay, 10,000. If it's 10 or 50,000 and the board feels comfortable, we can move forward because there's a lot of that money. We haven't gone to construction. So their contract right now actually already has 1.4 that they're authorized to go up to. We haven't gone to that yet because we haven't gone. So we could actually stay within the existing contract that we have with them. We just have to do a scope modification. So there's a lot of different ways we can get to where we want to be. But the first thing we needed, and which we did, I believe, receive today, was direction on what we're going to be actually designing there. And we will go back to Alvin and ask him to put together a amendment of what that cost would be. And then if we decide to do that and we spend that money and take it to bid, we still haven't authorized a contractor yet. That's when that next statement may be, and it also will be farther along, probably 6 months down the road, and we will have the long range financial plan with the building in those finances and then deciding what we're going to do. One of the things we've talked about before is the existing ratepayers should pay a portion of that, but also our future ratepayers. And that's when you're talking about doing some type of bonding or some borrowing or something like that. That's where Arturo will come in with his experts and say, this is the best way we move forward from that perspective. So we're not there yet, but the first step would be getting Renewal Clark's an estimate from them. We can do that with what we've gotten direction from today.
how much will that estimate cost the district? Well, let me just put this. You have the direction now. How much more is the district plan on spending with this direction?
I don't know. Right now, it doesn't cost us anything to ask for an amendment from a contractor or from a consultant.
I'm okay with it as long as we're not spending any more money until we find out.
Correct. Yes. Yes. And he's shaking his head, so I take that as a yes. I'm not putting words in
Okay,
his
good.
mouth, but to get a,
That's my only concern. No more money is being spent on this until we actually know what's going on.
to get a proposal
Oh,
for an amendment will
Okay.
not cost the district anything.
All right, that's what I'm getting at. Thank you.
And we'll bring that to you next week or next month.
Now I'm happy for another month.
Okay, anything further? Okay, and you have direction, moving forward.
We do. Alvin, do you feel comfortable with how to move forward?
Yes, this works for me.
Excellent. So thank you very much.
Thank
All
you.
right. Moving on to item 13, cannabis pre-treatment program discussion.
We talked about those changes to our Article 6 on Thursday. Always looking for feedback. We're going to make a couple of tweaks to what we have. Then we're going to reach out to those 40 users and put it on our website and go from there. And then like we talked about, we'll allow people to give us any comment from the board as well. And then to change the ordinance will require a public hearing. So it's probably going to be, just to make sure everybody gets feedback, probably sometime in March will be when we bring it back as a new ordinance.
Any questions or comments from the board? Okay,
Please, thank
Emily?
you. I did have a couple constituents reach out, or not constituents, business people in the community, sorry, reach out, and they were a little concerned because some of them have been put under the impression that we cannot serve them even though they are connected to our sewer. And they are under some great pressure from the regional board. And they're needing some sort of a will serve letter. I'm asking that you guys as staff look into how are we going to mitigate the existing customers we have in the clarified program while we await for the public hearing. And those will be some of the 40 people that you're going to be reaching out to, but I promised I would share their concerns.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just want to reiterate, and I know I brought this up during the study session. Director Duff has worked very hard on this for almost a year. And I just want to really commend her for her hard work in getting us to finally work on this because this is something that is long overdue. So again, thank you for your hard work. And it's nice to see that we're moving forward.
You know, she already voted for you to be vice president. You know that.
I know, but I can say something nice about her now and then, you know. It's the Christmas season.
I know. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
I do think we briefly spoke about this on Thursday, but after looking through it, there's quite a few instances where it mentions MSWD as the general manager and others where it just says the district. And I just think just to kind of make all of those consistent, and I'd lean more towards the district.
Yes, we will be removing the references to the general manager. It will be the district.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the public?
No, President Martin.
Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda, there are 3 items on the consent agenda: the approval of minutes for November 16th, November 20th, and November 21st. The register of demands totaling $6,150,153.97. And the 2023 Board of Directors meeting schedule. Does anybody want to pull one of those items for discussion?
I'd like to pull the register of demands.
Okay. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Wasn't sure if everyone else had to put in. Okay, so a couple questions, and maybe Arturo could approach the podium. Thank you very much. Just a couple questions. The BBVA Compass loan that we paid off, could you clarify what loan that was?
Thank you, Director Duff. This was brought up during the discussion of the solar project where one of the banks, there was 2 banks that basically said, we do not want to be part of this. In fact, we want to offer payoff letters. One of them did follow through, which was PNC BBVA. That requested payment and severed pretty much all communication and business with the district. That's what that was.
Okay. Oh, sorry to hear that, but okay, thank you. And then the other question I had, and it may be more of a comment, to be honest. Well, actually, one, yeah, 2, sorry. So one of the payments to Desert Water Agency for the RAC fees for a total of $429,571. So I did very rudimentary math based on, and again, this might be more of a comment, based on the CBWD's current engineers report, what we've received in replenishments from DWA. We received 5,276 acre feet in our Mission Creek ponds, but we just paid them $429,571 for RAC fees, which is for the replenishment costs. And CBWD pulled out 5,276 acre feet from the Mission Creek subbasin. So that would make those acre feet, and I know this is very rudimentary math, and I know there's going to be a long laundry list that I look forward to seeing from DWA, but it makes it more like $484 an acre foot from DWA based on how much how much of what they put in is being taken from CBWD. And we're only ending up with about 886 acre feet of the recharge, which was still 2,000 less than what we're supposed to be getting every year. So I just wanted to use this opportunity to bring up to the staff that as DWA is one of our contractors, I would really like them to present to the board where the tax money and where the RAC fees go in regards to the Mission Creek subbasin. And so I just kind of wanted to use this as an opportunity to state that to staff and to make sure the public is aware of what's going on. And as the California Conservation Way of Life is coming, these numbers we need to pay more attention to. The second thing I wanted to ask, and Arturo, I'm sorry for making you stay there, but I think this one's for Danny. I'm so sorry. I am trying to follow up on our new contracts and keep an eye on how things are going. And it looks like the sledge hauling with ecology is going well. Am I ascertaining that correctly?
You are, good afternoon. Good question. Yes, we are working well with them. We have had a couple of issues with incorrect invoices. They
That's-
are going to be possibly something that you'll be commenting on in the future as they're going to be paid in later months. But as far as the service, as far as the customer service and how they are actually hauling for us, we have no complaints.
Well, I have noticed that, although we had made, 4 hauling payments to them, we then gave them 2 credits that totaled almost $6,000. So I was just trying to understand how we overpaid them or what happened, but I wanted to make sure that we were satisfied with the way they're handling the contract and.
I'll need to bring that back to you exactly what the credits are. I do know that they incorrectly billed at a rate that was one of the options on their proposal. And I don't want to misspeak and say that that was one of the issues. We had a couple of other issues and I don't want to mix them up, but there was an issue where the tonnage was incorrect. So we're working through that process. If I may, I can bring that back to the general manager and get you the exact answer that is on this register.
That's fantastic. I'm just trying to help staff do what they need to do by keeping an eye on these new contracts that I participated in voting on. And that was one of them that just crossed my path and I needed to get some clarification. So thank you.
You're welcome. Completely understood. We took heed to what you stated last month. We shared that and we actually are, we were, and we are taking a closer look and we want to make sure that we bring things to the board that as expected.
Thank you for everything you guys do. Thank you.
Anything further? Anything further?
Yes,
Ed, go ahead.
thank you for that, Director Duff. I was also looking at the sledge hauling and what the original contract cost was, and so I'm looking forward to getting that update later. I noticed here, this General Manager Macy, you'd be the guy to comment on this. Urban Habitat is marked down here twice, once for $5,550, and then a second time, I think it was $3,000. 2 different payments to them. Yes, here it is. $3,150. Payment on 11/08. And then on 11/15. $5,550. Can you explain why they got 2 checks?
Danny, I know you're probably looking it up right now, probably asked you too quickly.
And then we also have labor compliance, Urban Habitat, $126.13. Maybe I can,
The labor compliance is easy. All of our contractors that pay prevailing wage, we have to then verify that we're getting all of that information. And we have a labor compliance consultant that does that. And then that particular line item is for that item. It's to make sure that they are following all the labor compliance rules and regulations.
so we're getting reimbursed at that cost through the original contractors,
No, it goes to a different consultant.
through a different consultant, correct? But is this $126 for this labor compliance coming out of the general budget, or was it included in the original contract with Urban Habitat?
I believe it was included with not the contract, but the cost center or the cost job number.
So that $126 is coming out of the monthly charges,
Out of our operating budget.
coming out of the district's operating budget.
Correct.
And that's the same with the rest of the labor compliance ones I see for the different companies.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Danny, do you have an answer for the 2 different charges?
Yeah, I see one appears to be September, the other appears to be October.
600?
And I apologize, I'm looking at this quickly. I may have that answer before the end of the meeting to exactly what that 600 is for.
There's another one for 600?
Or is that what you said, 600? I'm looking at the line item that is dated,
Okay, I'm looking here at page 51. $3,150 and. Where'd that? Page 50. At $5,712. And you have another one there for $600.
correct. I'll need to take a look at the $600. I know that September was short paid. If we recall, the way that the contract was set up is it has multiple locations. Some of the locations didn't have the quarterly charges for the month. Some of the locations which still won't have it. For example, we're not being billed for the regional facility. So until such time that we actually are doing the regional facility, we'll start seeing that. Some of the quarterly items aren't on every month. So I will, if I may, I'll take a look at this, also bring this back to you. The 600 does not ring a bell. I don't know if that was a catch-up item. I know that we had a full proposal to do some work, and some of the work was partially billed out. So I need to take a look at that and see what that carryover money is for.
Thank you. Before you go, maybe you can explain replacement of backhoe window. And the reason why I bring this up, it's hard to break a backhoe window unless, and we had an accident with the backhoe about 3 months ago. So I'm kind of concerned about what's going on with the safety there with the backhoe.
Yeah, they are hard to break. The mechanism that holds the window up apparently did not do its job. And the window came down hard and it did break. So we
Operator didn't get hurt then or anything?
there was nobody hurt in the incident. We have looked at it from a safety standpoint to see if something was done wrong. We can't really identify anything that was done incorrectly. But the window did break. It's being replaced. It was replaced, but nobody was injured.
Okay, so it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't due to
Safety, violation or.
no, it wasn't due to somebody actually hitting the window. It was actually due to the window shutting on its own.
Okay, thank you. And Director Duff? Maybe after the first of the year, you and I can get together down at the library in the little rooms and see if we can't figure out a way to. We can easier, how do I want to say that? An easier way to read this, because I know that each department sends it in. I don't know if they send it in randomly every day when they buy or once a week or what's going on, but it seems as if though, urban habitat could have been in one section and then the next section. Go ahead.
Sorry, it's all in how they tell the computer program. So there's two sets of the numbers that you're looking at here. One set goes from the most expensive line item to the least expensive line item. The other set goes chronologically. So if you want to see it by vendor, then we simply just have to ask Arturo to add printing one by vendor. Would that help you in reading the report?
Well, I think it would help everybody because it's kind of all over the different pages, just like now we had.
Brian, would that be
Different
something that
pages
would be
and-
okay?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I think that, let's see if that
Yeah, if
helps.
that
And
helps,
if you
and-
still need some help, I'm happy. And I know Arturo is also happy to help. Thanks.
Yeah, we'll talk after the first year and there's some questions I might want to ask you about financing. Like I told you in the beginning, I'm more interested, right? But for the first year, when I was interested, now I'm going into the financing. There's some questions there. Thank you.
Okay, anything further on the register of demands? Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second, it.
We have a motion and a second for the
Consent calendar.
consent agenda. Go roll call vote, please.
Director Meyerhoffen,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Yes.
Director Griffith,
Aye.
Vice President Sewell,
Yes.
President Martin.
Okay. Director's reports. Who wants to go first?
Okay.
Okay, Robert?
Okay, I don't have my book with my notes. I do have my date, so I know it's in the book. November 7th, I did do a DWA meeting, CBDW the following week. On the 16th, did the Desert Hot Springs State of the City event, which was fantastic. Lots of good news, and I think that bodes well for all of us here. We also had our study session that day. We had our board meeting on the 20th, on the 21st, another DWA meeting, and then 20th through the 30th was the Aqua Conference in Indian Wells. I think this one was much better, I want to say, than I think information wise in Monterey. I think Monterey was okay, but I think this one was really good. There was some really good topics, most notably about the things that we are all in the water world concerned with, such as the Colorado River. One that affects not just us, but the city of Desert Hot Springs and every other municipality and district in the state, which is the amendment to Prop 218 that may possibly be on the ballot next year. It is, however, currently in the Supreme Court. They did get it right to the California State Supreme Court, and the state is requesting that it be removed from the ballot, as it is not an amendment to the Constitution, but an actual change to the Constitution. So if that doesn't happen, then we need to seriously talk about the impacts this will have on all of us, which are very negative in terms of our ability to do anything. And the other one was the conservation as a way of life, which, as everyone knows, I did fly to Sacramento about. And they did a little workshop, and that provided us with information exactly how much work this is going to be. I know we spoke about this at the study session, or I spoke somewhere, I can't remember anymore, regarding us, maybe it was offline, about having to have somebody, I think it was the last study session.
It was at our
having to
last
have
workshop.
somebody dedicated to this. Our first reports are due in what, 2 weeks roughly?
Correct.
And that will be on an annual. We will actually have to do them every year. And if we do have variances, we'll also have to provide documentation and support for those every year. So this is something that's going to be very labor intensive for us. I know we're talking about our long range financial plan. It will impact us negatively, not just in terms of cuts to water usage that will need to be made, but in terms of the reporting and the requirements that are on the district itself for all of this. So I look forward to more sessions on that. It's very, very complicated. And so I'm hoping I can maybe one day kind of understand all of it a little bit better, but very, very informative. And so that was my last month that I can remember.
Amber?
Sure. I had a short month. I was out of town for a little while, but I did attend the DHS Planning Commission meeting electronically, and I wanted to congratulate our staff member, Eric Weck from the engineering department, and all of our staff for a good catch on the item coming forward on Planning Commission regarding some of our landscaping requirements and conservation requirements that are only going to get more intense, and watching those plans as they're coming through and making sure that they are following the guidelines given the city. And I was very proud of the job he did, and I think he was well received as well. I also attended the Aqua Fall Conference, the 28th through the 30th, and concur with comments already made. I kind of liked some of the previous format a little bit better, I will say, but the speakers were wonderful, and was very encouraged also to have sat in on one particular, and this is the only one I'll talk about, but one particular lecture series on the Colorado River, and they included the attorney for one of the tribes in Yuma, and talking about the tribal right for water and the fights that they have. And we are surrounded by tribal land and tribes that are going to need working partners as we proceed down this path with preserving our water rights as a state and as cities and municipalities. And it was just very encouraging and enlightening to hear a perspective from people that have been fighting for rights to their water for hundreds of years versus just this Colorado River fight. Anyway, it was a good month, and that's it. Thank you.
Ted?
Yes, I attended the DVBA networking night. There was a gentleman there who was a developer and recognized me for being on the planning commission. And I made the mistake by asking him if I voted for his project or not. And he said yes. So he was being polite, because I remember later I didn't. That will be the last time I ask that question. President Martin finally asked me why I ran for the election. And I gave him half of that answer right. So I attended the Aquafall conference also. It was my first conference that I've attended. And I felt a little lost there off and on, but it was very informative. I spoke with council member Gardner about how the district can work a little bit better together to help development. Also, it's brought to my attention that some of the other districts, the board of directors actually have a meeting every quarter with the council, the city council. I understand that, well, they said that sometimes when the general manager goes, not everything gets relayed back. And this way, with 5 people on each, from the city and from the water district, they start throwing around ideas and everybody gets to thinking. So that's just an idea. I think it might work good in the future. Anyways, I'm looking forward to the next conference. I guess it's in February. I'll be looking forward to that. Veterans Day event. I was at the Veterans Day event. It was a nice event. And the State of the City, I also attended that. And that was also a nice event. And seeing everything that come up on the board. And Mayor Mattis was there presenting all of it. And I enjoyed that. Other than that, that was it for me. It was slow.
Yes, I just have the one, and that's the November 28th through the 30th Aquafall Conference. They did rework it quite a bit, and I think it was maybe a cost savings. I'm not sure what their overall goal was, but they still had a keynote speaker, but at the same time it's breakouts. So I went to the keynote and there was only maybe 75 people in there. So I don't know if that made much sense, but the different sessions I attended, the one that really stuck out to me was the Prop 218 session. They went over a lot of the dangers of setting your rates incorrectly, a lot of different potentials for litigation. And then they also talked about setting your rates for conservation and efficiency. And then another session that I liked was the financing infrastructure session. And the majority of that was actually talking about setting rates. Just about all the districts that they kind of showcased, they've almost flipped their fixed charge versus their commodity charges. And their recommendation was to just increase your fixed charges to help with infrastructure costs. So I think a lot of good information I gained that will help when we go over our financial plan. That's all I have.
Okay. On the 2nd of November, attended Desert Valley Builders Association legislative morning meeting. It was a well-attended event, nothing earth-shaking to report back. On the 3rd, I attended a luncheon put on by an organization called the Girlfriend Factor, and they whose membership members are some of the leadership of the different areas throughout the Coachella Valley. And one of the honorees was Gretchen Gutierrez from Desert Valley Builders Association. One of their goals for the Girlfriend Factor is to raise money for scholarships for young women who are pursuing advanced education. And I wish I'd known that earlier, because I just put 2 daughters through college and it was not cheap. So it would have been nice to have to be aware of this organization before. Anyway, city council meeting on the 7th, kind of a minor issue, but I was reading in the press that, or maybe it was on the news, where the claim was that Hillary caused 2 to 3 inches of rainfall totals. And I don't know where they got that rainfall totals on, but the city reported back that it was anywhere from 9.25 to 12.91 inches, which is a lot more consistent with what I witnessed during that storm. I mean, I can't believe that anybody who thought that there was only 2 to 3 inches of rainfall during that storm, certainly not what I saw. They also had a second reading on the short-term rental ordinance revisions. Moving on to the 8th Desert Valley Builders Association Networking Night, well attended. I don't know whether the developer you were talking to, Ted, was, but he's one of the developers is
You're gonna have to mention.
Mario Gonzalez, who actually owned the restaurant that we were having the event at. So, and he is one of the top developers in the Coachella Valley.
Very nice gentleman.
Yes, he is.
Done a
Yes,
Very
he
nice
Yes, he is.
presentation.
On the 13th, Desert Valley Builders Association Board meeting, primary focus was on the budget as of October 31st. 11/28 through the 30th, the Aqua Conference. I don't want to repeat what I've already heard here today. I agree with most of what was said. There were some good aspects of the conference. There was some bad. One of the things you mentioned was some breakouts or a keynote speaker. My understanding was that one of the keynote speakers either had an accident or something like that and had to cancel out. And that may be why there was such a low turnout for that. I don't know whether that's the case or not, but on the 9th, the Coachella Valley Association of Governments, the Conservation Commission, and the Sustainability Committee. I'm a member of both those groups. Some good information came out of that. On the 11th, I also attended the Veterans Day event, Veterans Park, well-attended event. A little bit shorter than past events. We're in and out in about less than half an hour. The 16th, this Desert Hot Springs State of the City. It was an excellent presentation. Kudos to City Council and Mayor for putting on such a terrific event. On the 16th, I attended the Riverside County Wide Oversight Board, and the main focus of the business was the recognized obligation payment schedule review and approval. And then on the 20th, Cabot's board meeting budget report and going over the balance sheet. And that concludes my reports. And first agenda. Well, what's that? Yeah, general manager's report. Go ahead. Brian.
Thank you, President Martin.
Thank you.
I believe Danny's ready to
All right.
answer those 2 questions regarding the habitat of humanity. Or excuse me, urban habitat. Excuse me.
Good afternoon again. I am actually able to address the first question as well from Director Duff. There was some changes made to the way that the accounting would like to see discrepancies on invoices. And I did speak to the correct invoice. They were billed incorrectly. However, we did direct them to go ahead and give us a credit invoice, and that's what you see. So you'll start seeing that in the future for any vendor that has a correction for that matter. For the other item, Director Meyerhoffen, I apologize. I cannot find the did you say a $600 item?
No, I thought that's what you said.
Oh, then I'm sorry. I didn't mean to confuse it. So then there are the 2 items. There are the 2 items on here. They're identified on the left, regardless of by amount or by vendor order. They have a unique identifier, which is the check number, ending in 857, 555 or $5,550 is monthly landscape cost for October, and that does include quarterly costs that were included in that. And the other item that has an identifier of the last 3 of 806 is for September, and that is September's cost, but don't include the quarterly. And the reason that those are still showing up on here is because of labor compliance. So I know that interim general manager already mentioned that this is a requirement, labor compliance, because of certified payroll and other type of prevailing wages. And they do get billed to the cost center, typically where we are charging the actual cost per vendor. So if it was a well vendor, it would be under that cost center. In this case, it would also fall under the landscape budget.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. One of the things I did mention earlier was that our office will be closed next week, but we will have staff in the building. What I failed to mention is we will also not be doing any turn on or turn offs at that time, specifically turn offs for obvious reasons, because of the holidays. And also on the dais, when you sat down, you should have seen 3 letters or comment to the Chrome 6 regulation. You see 3 letters, one at a statewide level through Aqua. You see one regional at Coachella Valley Regional Water Management Group, and then of course our own letter as well. If you have any questions over those comments or our letters, please let us know. But that concludes my report today.
Okay. Yes, Amber?
I guess I tried to do this on Thursday, but we kind of got off on a conversation, so I couldn't ask a question. But on page 13 of the general manager's report, when you're talking about 8018 GQPP sewer project for H&I had a question for you as well as for possibly the attorney. It looks like we haven't been able to get the property owner to communicate with us from what I'm reading. And so now we're looking at creating a lift station to bypass, which will be an ongoing continuous cost. Is there any legal remedy that we have as a utility company against a non-respondent property owner for right of way or any kind of required utility easement that would prevent us having to create these lift station amendments and costs that would be incurred in perpetuity?
So I'll speak generally rather than to the specific situation. I mean, as a public agency, the district does have eminent domain powers if it needed to acquire right away, generally speaking. But I don't want to get specifically into somebody's unique property circumstances.
So I just ask that staff look into those specific circumstances in regard to this particular property owner. And if it is that they have just been completely non-responsive, before we spend a bunch of money rerouting our whole plan for the one property and having those pump costs become something for the future, can we look into the legal remedies there?
Absolutely. We haven't given up working with this. We have been going back and forth over
Okay.
time. It's just the alignment. We cannot agree on an alignment. But we are going to continue to work with them.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Do you have anything? Ted? Okay. Moving on to district council comments.
Yes, we will have a closed session today on item 21, 22, and 23. 21 is conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. The agency designated representative is President Russ Martin. The unrepresented employee position is general manager. Item 22 is conference with legal counsel regarding potential initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4, and that involves one potential case. Item 23 is conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2 and/or 3, and that involves one potential case.
Okay. Moving on to item 20, director comments. Ted?
I just have a request. My hearing sometimes is bad and I don't always hear. I was wondering if be okay with our new president, if I were able to sit on the left side of you so I can hear a little bit better when we do the seating arrangement. Thank you.
Okay, Ivan?
Yes, wanted to start out with just a thank you to President Martin. I think it's been a great 2 years with you leading our ship, and I appreciate all the work you've done and set an example for me as I move into president. And then just, I appreciate the board's confidence in me taking over this for next year, and I'm looking forward to it. And just a happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everyone and our staff. Thank you.
Robert?
Okay, I just want to kind of backtrack on the Aqua conference and say that if you are, this is for anybody that's listening, if you're running a conference and you have breakfast, please have places for people to sit so that they can actually eat. I think to me, that was my least favorite part was the continental breakfast, and I think it was expensive. They went cheap because there wasn't much to choose from. I like to be able to sit down and eat, so not have to juggle three things. I want to congratulate Vice President Sewell, or President-elect Sewell now, on his position. I look forward to working with him next year. We have a lot of stuff coming up. Very busy year ahead of us, and I look forward to us working to make sure that we kind of just drive this train right through it and get it done. So, and with that, I will say, everyone have a great holiday, Merry Christmas, or whatever you celebrate. Happy New Year. It's a week away, so if you're not ready, get out there and get your gifts done because it's coming.
Like a freight train. Amber?
Thank you. So first, and if this isn't appropriate, please let me know, but I didn't get the opportunity to make a motion when we were on number 8 for the election, requesting a workshop for the board handbook, as it was apparent there's lots of upgrading that needs to be done, and updating that needs to be done. I don't know if I need to do a formal motion to ask for that to be a workshop, or if I can just request that we get that added to our hopefully January workshop so that we can update with our new strategic plan, our new vision and our new goals, etc. All of that has to get updated.
Yeah, that's just a question of asking to have it.
Okay, so asked.
That's the new president.
So asked. And then I also wanted to congratulate the newly elected board members to my right. We have a big year ahead of us. It's exciting. We need to keep the wheels moving efficiently and set a good example for our staff. And I look forward to the new year and many new beginnings. With that, I also want to thank President Martin for his gracious presidency this last year as my first year on the board. Thank you for being kind and showing us the ropes, so to speak, and we appreciate that. Introducing me to people that I needed to know, appreciate that. And thanks for all you did. Also, happy holidays and Merry Christmas to all out there in Desert Hot Springs, all of our staff. Enjoy your families, make the best of it, be safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Yes, my only comment are to, I want to thank the board for the work that they've done and working as a team to provide the best possible service to the people who live in our jurisdiction. It's been a 2-year span of some mostly ups, a few downs, but mostly ups, and I'm sure that Director Sewell will do an outstanding job, as will his vice president moving forward. Very, very impressed with both of them, and I look forward to their leadership. And I also want to pass along very happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, and with that, we will go into closed session. Are we going to do that? We're going to do that upstairs?
Yes, President.
Okay, all right. We'll meet upstairs. Yes, we're now back in regular session. Council, would you report out on closed session?
Yes, the board met in closed session. Item 21 was conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. The agency designated representative was Russ Martin. the unrepresented employee, the general manager, and there was no reportable action taken in closed session. Item 22, conference with legal counsel regarding potential initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4. One potential case, there was no reportable action taken. Item number 23, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2 and/or 3. This matter involved one potential case, and there was no reportable action taken, and that concludes a report out from closed session.
All right, this meeting is adjourned.